A new report on the Rohingya refugee crisis in Myanmar says there's mounting evidence of genocide in that country. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum teamed up with a nonprofit group called Fortify Rights to investigate the situation. Researchers found nearly 1 million Rohingya have been forced to flee their homes since last year. Myanmar's military is accused of a list of atrocities and human rights violations, including torching villages belonging to the largely Muslim group, forcing people to flee the violence and escape to neighboring Bangladesh. To discuss this report more now, we are joined by Andrea Gittleman. She's a program manager at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum Center for the Prevention of Genocide, joining us now from Washington. Thank you so much, Andrea. You know, it seems like the world is just now waking up to the horror that is taking place in Myanmar and Bangladesh. But this has been going on for a while now. You guys have been collecting information for this report for a year. Talk about the challenges you face trying to get accurate information and enough information to put it together in a report like this.
Indeed. Well, thank you for those questions. You're right, this is something that has been going on for a very long time. I think in the headlines today, people are seeing the violence and mass atrocities committed against the Rohingya minority population in Burma and the massive flight, the exodus of people to Bangladesh. But you're exactly right in pointing out that this is not something new. It's not a crisis just of the past several months, but this has been years, even decades in the making. The kind of work that had to be done in order to put this kind of information together really drew upon information from testimony from refugees, from people who have fled to Bangladesh. And the reason why a lot of the information needed to come directly from them is because areas where the atrocities were occurring over the border in Rakhine State in Burma is still inaccessible to many researchers. So we needed to speak with as many people as possible in order to put together a full picture of what is happening.
So what can you tell me about the process? You sent people to these refugee camps and they literally sort of sat people down and spoke to them one by one about the nightmare?
Well, we at the Holocaust Museum spoke with a few people in Bangladesh, and over the past year, actually more than a year, about a year and a half, had been speaking with displaced Rohingya within Burma in various settings, people who have fled other previous episodes of violence. Our partners, as you mentioned, Fortify Rights, spoke with many more people, refugees who were in Bangladesh. They spoke to people in these makeshift camps. They spoke in focus groups, individually, again trying to speak with as diverse a group of people as possible in order to get a broad understanding of what was happening.
Now, these people, the ones who managed to flee, are certainly in a safer place in Bangladesh, but Bangladesh is one of, if not the poorest countries in the world. They're not equipped to deal with this influx of people in desperate need. We're talking about some, I think, 40,000 children that are at risk of being malnourished. Tell me about the conditions on the ground and where are they getting the aid they need? How are they getting the aid? What needs to be done?
So with about, I think, 700,000 people crossing over the border within the past several months, the strain on Bangladesh is immense. And people who are fleeing for their lives. They're not taking much with them. And so when they arrive in Bangladesh, it's a situation where they are facing severe needs, where basic necessities must be met. And Bangladesh is helping provide. There has been international assistance, including from the United States, to help provide humanitarian relief. But this is not something that will go away quickly, and this is something where the need is going to be great. Right now, the need far extends the services that are available. And so for Bangladesh and for others operating in the region, people will be in need of services for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson recently condemned the abuses in Myanmar. Let's listen to what he had to say, though, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
What we know occurred in Rakhine State that led to so many people fleeing the area has a number of characteristics, certainly crimes against humanity. Whether it meets all the criteria for ethnic cleansing, I think we continue to evaluate that ourselves. I think this is the reason why an independent investigation would be very useful to help us understand not just who to hold accountable, but also why. You know, what were the motivations behind what occurred.
So he says he's not sure yet if this is an example of ethnic cleansing. You know, what do you make of his remarks, but not only his remarks, the way the international community has dealt with this crisis?
Sure. Well, those are two very different questions. I think in terms of the Secretary's remarks, I would applaud him on identifying these crimes as crimes against humanity. As we've laid out in the report, these attacks have been systematic and widespread against the civilian population. Whether or not they can be described as ethnic cleansing, it is difficult because the term doesn't have a specific legal definition. But as the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has said, it appears to match other situations that have also been described as ethnic cleansing. And for those reasons, those are terms that we have used in our report. I would echo the Secretary's recommendation for an independent investigation. The Burmese military has conducted an investigation which completely whitewashed the crimes of the military, and of course they cannot be relied upon to investigate their own atrocities. So I would support his recommendation that we actually have an independent investigation into what has happened.
Can we talk a little bit about Aung San Suu Kyi? She is Myanmar's state counselor, essentially sort of de facto president. But certainly the military seems to wield a lot of power as well. And there's been an outcry for her to speak up and say something. She hasn't said much. What would you like her to do?
Well, I think we should acknowledge the difficult position that she's in. As you said, she does not control the military. The military still holds outsized power over the government. They control key ministries as well as a substantial part of the parliament. Yet there is more that Aung San Suu Kyi can do. She is the de facto leader. As you said, she is the leader of the civilian-led government. So while she does not control the military, who are the primary perpetrators of these atrocities, there is more that she could do in terms of expressing her own outrage that these crimes are taking place, in terms of supporting an international investigation or supporting access for humanitarian assistance to those within her country who need it. Those are things that are well within her power.
You know, for many people hearing about the Rohingya, this would be the first time they're learning about what essentially in the grand population is a small group of Muslims. But what's happening in Myanmar, does that have implications beyond just Myanmar?
Well, what we're looking at in Myanmar or in Burma is state-led persecution against the Rohingya minority and against other minorities within the country as well, some who are Muslim and some who are Christian and of other faiths. The Rohingya minority has been targeted for these acts of persecution, for acts of violence for years, for decades. So what we're seeing happening now over the past several months is an alarming escalation of a long-standing crisis that has faced this population. And truly, attacks on religious minorities, on ethnic minorities in the country is something with which the new government will really need to grapple with in order to forge a more peaceful future in the country.
Well, it is sad, but you are doing great work. Andrea Gittleman, thank you very much.
Thank you.